Hi guys, welcome back to Codemaster Coach, your medical coding tutor. Guys, on yesterday I started chapter 2 of the 2024 ICD-10-CM official coding guidelines on neoplasms, but the video got too long, and so I wanted to make this part B so that you're not spending so much time listening to me and you actually have time to study. So put part 6, A and B together as you're studying chapter 2. All right, let's see where we left off on chapter 2. We were at M. So let me minimize my box. And let's look at M, current malignancy versus personal history of malignancy. And it says follow the guidelines. So let's look at the guidelines. When a primary malignancy has been excised, but further treatment, such as an additional surgery for the malignancy, radiation therapy, or chemotherapy is directed to that site, then the primary malignancy code should still be used until treatment is complete. As long as they're actively treating the neoplasm, whether it's been excised and they're currently trying to radiate it and everything, it's still being treated, you code it as such. And when a primary malignancy has been previously excised or eradicated from its site, there is no further treatment or malignancy directed to that site, and there is no evidence of any existing primary malignancy at that site, then a code from category Z85, personal history of malignant neoplasm, should be used to indicate the former site of the malignancy. Now notice the difference here. If you're excising it and still giving treatment or chemo to treat it, then you're still actively treating an active neoplasm. So you would code it as active neoplasm of primary site. But if they eradicate it, remove the breast or whatever, it's been excised, there's no more problems, there's no more treatment going on, then you can code history of, personal history of. But note it says codes from subcategories Z85.0 through Z85.85 should only be assigned for the former site of a primary malignancy, not the site of a secondary malignancy. And I thought that was interesting, where they designate coding those history codes for just the primary. And then it says Z85.89 may be assigned for the former site of either a primary or a secondary malignancy. So that Z8589 can be for primary or secondary. But when you're coding a history of a primary malignancy, that's where you code that personal history, Z85.0 through Z85.85. So I'm going to designate that. I didn't realize that. I'm going to designate that in my ICD-10 code book at these codes that Z85.0 through Z85.85 can only be used on a primary malignancy and not a site of a secondary malignancy. And then for the secondary, it would be the Z85.89. So that was good information. All right, that's M. Let's look at N, leukemia, multiple myeloma, and malignant plasma cell neoplasms in remission versus personal history. Notice the difference, whether it's in remission or personal history. So let's look at N. The categories for leukemia and category C90, multiple myeloma and malignant plasma cell neoplasms, have codes indicating whether or not the leukemia has achieved remission. There are also codes Z85.6, personal history of leukemia, and Z85.79, personal history of other malignant neoplasm of lymphoid, hematopoietic, and related tissues. If the documentation is unclear as to whether the leukemia has achieved remission, the provider should be queried. So notice at code or category, it says here, C90. That's where you can designate whether or not remission has been achieved. So on those types of cancers, identify whether or not remission, or as the extent of the remission versus the personal history. All right, that's N. And let's go to O. Oh, look what it says for O, future guideline. Let me see what O. Aftercare following surgery for neoplasm. That's going to be in a later section under factors influencing health status and contact with health services aftercare. So we'll cover O at a later date. P, follow-up care for completed treatment of a malignancy. That's a future as well. Well, I might as well identify. So follow-up care for completed treatment of a malignancy is in a future guideline, as well as prophylactic organ removal for prevention of malignancy is going to be in a future guideline. So we're down to R. Let me make sure I'm staying on track. Elemental P, yep, Q, and R says follow the guidelines. All right, so let's look at R. Malignant neoplasm associated with transplanted organs. A malignant neoplasm of a transplanted organ should be coded as a transplant complication. Assign first the appropriate code from category T86, complications of transplanted organs and tissues, followed by code C80.2 for malignant neoplasm associated with transplanted organ, and then use an additional code for a specific malignancy. So here we are going to identify that transplanted organ is what's got the cancer, not the actual body part, and we're going to identify it with the T86 complication code. All right, that is R. S says follow the guidelines, okay? Breast implant associated with anaplastic large cell lymphoma. Breast implants associated with anaplastic large cell lymphoma is a type of lymphoma that can develop around breast implants. So assign code C84.7A, anaplastic large cell lymphoma, ALK negative breast for BIA-ALCL. Do not assign a complication code from Chapter 19 because this C84.7A identifies that the cancer is of the breast implant. Okay, let's go to T. Secondary neoplasms of lymphoid tissue. When a malignant neoplasm of lymphoid tissue metastasizes beyond the lymph nodes, a code from categories C81 through C85 with the final character 9 should be assigned, identifying extranodal and solid organ sites rather than a code for the secondary neoplasm of the affected solid organ. For example, for metastasis of diffuse large B-cell lymphoma to the lung, brain, and left adrenal gland, assign code C83.39, diffuse large B-cell lymphoma, extranodal, and solid organ sites. So again, you're identifying the fact that it's in the lymph nodes and not the actual body organ. So when it metastasizes, you should be in the C81 through C85 with the final character of 9 to identify such. All right, and then, okay, my next video is going to be on Chapter 3, disease of blood and blood-forming organs, but that it says here in the guidelines that Chapter 3 has been reserved for future guideline expansion. So we should see quite a bit going on with diseases of the blood and blood-forming organs and certain disorders involving the immune mechanism. These are codes D50 through D89. We'll see some changes coming in that chapter. So I changed that. Our next video next week will be on Chapter 4, endocrine, nutritional, and metabolic diseases. And those can be found between codes E00 through E89. Yep. We're going to Chapter 4. Okay, guys, hopefully studying these guidelines is helping you to start staying in your books and being prepared for more than just whatever section you currently code for daily. Let's stay current and up to date with our coding, guys, okay? Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.